Incidents that occurred last night. The first one I'm going to start off with, well, first I better introduce myself. I'm Chris Bailey. I'm Deputy Chief of the Criminal Investigations Division for the Indianapolis Police Department, B-A-I-L-E-Y. The first incident we'll talk about is 2000 Blue Pine Lane. That occurred last night. We had a total of 4 people shot during that incident, 2 deceased. I'll kind of run through some bullet points of the timing and what we believe at this point. And I want everybody to remember that these investigations are still ongoing, and investigators are still out working right at this moment on both these cases. So some of the facts that I'm giving you today, or some of the information I'm giving you today, could change as they develop their case further. So it's 7:38 p.m. last night. Officers were sent to 2000 I'm having trouble with that, Blue Pine Lane, after a 911 caller from the house reported that multiple people were shot inside the house. Officers arrived and found a male identified as Robert Lee, 24, in the front yard with multiple gunshot injuries. Officers were led into the house where they found 3 additional victims with gunshot wounds. 26-year-old Ricardo Mendez was pronounced dead inside the house. The others were taken to area hospitals. Robert Lee died at the hospital at 11:21. 2 other victims, 1 juvenile male and 1 adult male, are now in stable condition, still at the hospital. I want everybody to be aware this is not a random act of violence. Through the investigation, we've learned that at least one of the victims and the suspect were known to each other, and we believe at this time that this is a drug robbery that turned violent, most likely involving marijuana. This is still an active investigation, lots of work left to do. Based on eyewitness statements, the suspect is going to be Robert Lee. He exited a vehicle, approached and then entered the house. At some point inside the house, Lee produced a handgun, threatened individuals inside the house. At some point something occurred inside the house and Lee opened fire, shooting people inside the house. One of the persons in there pulled out his own gun, returned fire, hitting Lee multiple times. That person then called police and has provided a statement to investigators. Robert Lee is known to police. He has connections both here and in Gary, Indiana. He was arrested here in January during a home detention check. During that investigation, 2 AR-15s were recovered, as well as a stolen handgun were found, and at the time of the incident last night, Lee was on probation for prior convictions from Marion County. We believe this is an isolated incident involving these actors, and there is no ongoing public safety threat at this time. At the 4100 El Lago incident, this is an incident that occurred a short time later at 11:53 p.m. Officers were sent to a person shot to that location, where they found the victim deceased there on the scene. He was not transported to the hospital. I'm not identifying that person right now because the next of kin still have not been notified. Hopefully that information can be given to you by the coroner's office at a later time. This investigation I have very little information on about what exactly occurred. There is speculation, but I won't go into that. We believe that the victim in this case also has connections to Gary, Indiana, and may also be narcotics related, although the 2 incidents on the west side and the one on the south side are not connected directly to each other. So, obviously any loss of life by the hands of violent means is terrible and unacceptable, especially in Indianapolis and in any civilized society. So our thoughts go out with the families of all those impacted by these 2 incidents and all the incidents that we've had in our city throughout this year and the years past. Throughout my 20 years in the police department, I've seen the trafficking of narcotics become increasingly violent trade, and it's very risky behavior to be involved with. And just this year, it seems like we've had a significant increase in our homicides that are related to the distribution of marijuana. And that's not a good sign. There have also been, as I mentioned in both these incidents, an uptick in individuals that have some sort of connection to Gary, Indiana, involved and implicated in drug trafficking and violence in our city. And our ability to target these individuals is a direct result of the Indianapolis Violence Reduction Partnership, IVRP, and through our ongoing collaboration with the Gary Police Department, we have been able to quickly identify and gather intelligence on those individuals who are going back and forth between Indianapolis and Gary, committing acts of violence and drug trafficking in both of our cities. The police department in Gary, Indiana, has been incredible, an incredible partner. One of their deputy chiefs was down here a couple weeks ago, and there's been an increase in sharing information between our city and their city, and they are a active participant and partner in IVRP, not just agencies here in Indianapolis and our federal partners and in the partners in Central Indiana, but also our partner in Gary, our partners in Gary, Indiana. We share some of the same troubles and struggles when it comes to violence, and that sharing of information between our two cities is important for the safety of the citizens in both. You know, we are a proud city, and a city that has always and will continue to welcome all to come visit, to live here, to thrive. But if you come from anywhere, whether it's Gary or other places, and you come to Indianapolis with the intent to commit violence, you are going to have the full weight, effort, and resources of the IMPD, all of our state and local partners that are going to focus our attention on you. We know who their associates are of some of the people involved in these two incidents and many of the other incidents. And the message to them is, if you're thinking about retaliation, I wouldn't. You are on our radars. We know who you are, and we are communicating with the Gary Police Department about you and all of our partners in between here and Gary on I-65. So we will do whatever it takes to hold you accountable for committing violence in our city. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the update that I have for you right now. Any questions?
So even though they're both narcotics related potentially and both have ties to Gary, the two cases go with that?
No, the two cases are not connected at all, other than the similarities between drug trafficking, which is no stranger to violence and murder in our community, and the fact that some of the players come here from Gary, Indiana.
How much marijuana was recovered in?
That's still part of the investigation, and I don't have an exact amount for you at this point.
The other incidents you're talking about, do they all involve marijuana? The Gary connection, is that a...
Not all of them. No, they don't. No, I mean, it's a variety of drugs. I mean, but it seems to be a lot, whether it's Gary connected or not, that a lot of our violence revolves around marijuana and the marijuana trade. I think it's the most highly used narcotic in the state of Indiana and probably around the country. And so there are a lot of people that have their hands in it. I've said this before. This isn't the marijuana that you know, our parents and grandparents smoked in the 50s and 60s. This is high grade, high potent marijuana that is homegrown in the United States. That's manipulated, and it sometimes can be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a pound. So there's a lot of money involved in this underground economy, specifically around marijuana. And if you can get your hands on some of that, you can make a lot of money quickly.
Even though it's early, it sounds like there's been some positive results with this new connection between IMPD and Gary PD.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary reached out to us. They were proactive to us to say, hey, look, if you're paying attention to what's going on up here, we've had some high-profile incidents over the last couple of weeks. We believe that we have some known gang members who have left Gary and are coming down to Indianapolis. Here's some intelligence. Here's who they are. Here's some videos that they've shot from Indianapolis, trying to stake their own and new territory down in your city. And we want to be there to help you try to combat that and prevent that from becoming violent. And we are doing the same to them, providing information back to them when we get it.
Another question on the Blue Pine shooting. I know you mentioned again the 2 deceased, 2 unstable. I know there was talk last night of another individual who went to Eskenazi on his own, looked to be wounded in that shooting. Is that still the case? Or how many victims total do we have in that shooting?
There was 4 total victims that we can confirm that were associated with that incident. The person that showed up at Eskenazi, that has not been connected as of right now. It doesn't mean it's not, but right now we've got no true connections. And fortunately or unfortunately enough, that gentleman also is from Gary, Indiana.
How do you battle the gang situation? Because it sounds like this is also gang on gang kind of thing too.
No, we have no evidence that this is gang on gang relationship. We think that the driving factor in here is the narcotics trade, and while Gary probably more so than us have some true identified, that traditional thing that we think about gangs because it's so close to Gary. In Indianapolis, we do have some semblance of that, but we have a lot of individual groups, street cliques, and things like that. And so organized gang activity, I don't think is a part in either one of these two incidents. I think it's mostly the drug trade that's caught that has something to do with these two things.
When did you see the increase in marijuana-related robberies and issues?
Well, I've noticed it for the last couple of years, but it seems very prevalent this year.
What is the comparison when you look at states where it's legal? Is it lower? Is it 1 month? Do you have any idea?
I haven't studied that, but there's still, speaking to some of our partners in those other states, there's still an underground economy associated with legalized marijuana. Very few people in some of our neighborhoods can afford to pay retail and tax for a marijuana, so there's still going to be an underground economy, a black market that's going to sell marijuana cheaper than you can buy it at a dispensary.
This will be the last question.
Fair to say, though, that both these incidents were targeted. The vast majority of the crime, deadly crime we see in the city is targeted crimes.
Yeah, a lot of these incidents are incidents of where people have a relationship or they know each other in some form or fashion. Very rarely are we seeing the random victims who are not associated with each other. They occur, but they're very rare. Most of the time, that people have some sort of relationship with each other, one way or the other. Thank you.
I think that